Welcome to the MFS Wellness Podcast, a hybrid structure encompassing health, fitness, self-improvement, and entertainment, where no topic is off limits and all opinions are graciously welcomed.
Let's get on with the show!
And now, here's the host of the show, Mike Sinopoli.
Welcome to the MFS Wellness Podcast. I am Mike Sinopoli, certified nutrition coach, consultant, counselor, call me whatever you would like. On this episode, we are discussing drinking calories and the dangers all around that. Notice that I said we, because this is a monumental episode here on the MFS Wellness Podcast. I have my very first guest. He is well known in the podcasting world, hosting 2 podcasts himself. Ford in Vegas, a true crime podcast, and Mark's Side of the Ring, a wrestling podcast in which 3 Marks talk about wrestling in which it was real. He has helped me launch this podcast. His help and assistance has been very valued in getting this thing going here. And you wonder why is he here today? Because he is a recovering Pepsi addict. And I will introduce you here to Mr. Dick Ford. Dick, thank you for joining me today.
Yes, I am a certified recovering Pepsi-aholic.
Yes.
Your accolades that you rattled off at the top on yourself. That was pretty good.
See, I think I gave you a decent intro. I mean,
and you followed up with you gave me a decent intro. Yes, I'm the first guest ever. So no one will be able to take that away from me.
You're the only other voice on this podcast as of right now. And this is supposed to be the first of many. I will still be doing my own thing solo as I have been. This is episode number 30. And we might even close out the year with this one, but I'm pretty sure I'll be back on for another one here solo before we hit 2023. So what I wanted to get into on this episode is something that, is very overlooked at times when it comes to weight loss, fat loss, our overall health, and it's what we drink. It's our calories that we take in liquid form. We have an issue here in this country and around the world, and it's a sugar drinking addiction. It's getting to a bad point right now. And Dick, I wanted to ask you, what was your Pepsi drinking like at its worst, at its height? Where were you? How many cans were you consuming a day? What was it like for you, and where were you?
Okay, so I would drink no less than a can a day, but you were at
a can a day,
at least
a can a day, which isn't actually too bad for what I've seen where I've been before. I had a client before who was drinking 3 to 4 Dr. Pepper cans a day. And what we did with her, I didn't just sit there and tell her, hey, listen, you got to stop drinking this shit right now. I didn't do that to them. That's too much of a 180 in too short of a time. So what we did was we just slowly took that away. I said, all right, let's start with 3. Should go from 4 to 3 this week. Let's see how you do. And then we would progress from there and dwindle it down. How did you go about nixing the Pepsi? Because you're at 0 now, right?
Yeah. So I would sometimes on the weekends, I could drink 2 or 3 a day on the weekends because I'd be home. See, what I used to do when I used to work out of the house, I would take a can of soda with me every day and I'd have it for lunch. But circumstances, some things may come up. Maybe I need a little extra. I'll go walk next door. The Chinese food restaurant would give me a can of soda for $1. So maybe I'll knock down another one. So it was at least a can a day, but that's not even true because I would come home and I'd have one for dinner. So I was probably doing 2 a day.
So
guaranteed.
2 a day. That's right there. If you're not familiar with the caloric content of a Pepsi, of a regular non-diet soft drink, that's probably around 150 calories a can if it's a 12-ounce can. That's if if it's a 12-ouncer. And then you get to your 16s and your ones that are larger. And I flat out can't believe the amount of calories that one can put in their mouth just through drinking into their body. What we have available to us here, it's so convenient. It's so easy. It hits the taste buds. It hits the bliss points. It's cold. It's crisp. It's sweet. It just feels so good. There's so much going on in your mouth with that thing, with the texture, the taste, and the fizz, and the burp that makes you want to eat more that comes along with it. Is everything toxic that you can think of when you suck these things down. So
make me want one right now.
See. Now, let me ask you this. Are you still allowing yourself the occasional Pepsi, or have you gone cold turkey history off of it?
I will have a Pepsi if I'm out at a restaurant and they serve Pepsi. Right. I don't drink Coke.
You will not drink Coke. Now, can I ask you this? Now, I've never been one. Never been a dark pop fan. I never really have been a dark soda fan. Here in the Midwest, we call it pop. If you're listening on the East or West Coast or somewhere else, pop and soda are one and the same.
Sometimes it's soda pop.
Soda pop, exactly. Yeah. Now, have you? Why won't you drink Cokes? To me, I can taste the difference between the two. I'm not particular to either one. I don't really care. But what is it so different from Pepsi to Coke to you that your taste buds just gravitate towards the Pepsi?
The Coke tastes. The Coke has a harsher feel for me.
Like, it's not as sweet. I feel like Pepsi's sweeter.
Yeah. And I've grown up. I grew up Pepsi. My mom would have Pepsi, and when we could afford it, we'd have Pepsi. Otherwise, it was RC Cola.
Good old Royal Crown, baby.
Yes. And my father, when I was at his house, it was always Pepsi in the fridge, but he had a lot of the non-caffeine Pepsi. It was like that gold can.
Yeah, I know that one. My mom used to have that. My mother used to have that in Diet Right.
So I grew up on Pepsi. I became a Pepsi guy. I could have a Pepsi tattoo on my arm, like CM Punk. But so I'm only Pepsi, loyal, to a fault, I guess you could say. And so if I'm out and they have Pepsi, I'll have Pepsi. So if not, then it's just soda water.
Well, that's even better for you then. That's all good. But then, as you can see, what he's saying here is his upbringing. And that's a lot of the issues that we have with people with their diets, with what they eat, what they consume, is what they were brought up with. Whether that's right or wrong, there's no blame to be placed. But when you're brought up with something as the norm, as what you just have always done, and if you can't see past the blinders that have been put on you, subconsciously or not, then you're just going to kind of keep going with it until you come to a point of realization of when, hey, maybe I shouldn't be drinking all of this stuff. So that leads me to my question, Dick. When did you realize, and I know it was recent because we've been friends for probably about 7 or 8 years now, and I know you've been a Pepsi drinker, and I'd give you a little shit saying,
no, not a little. That example you talked about earlier, the woman with the Dr. Pepper, and you told her, oh, you went easy on her. You did not. You've never gone easy on me.
Well, so you weren't a paying client.
I wasn't a client. That must have been it.
You're just a dickhead.
You would message me out of nowhere, okay? You would message me out of nowhere, that shit's toxic, stop drinking it, cut it out. And you would hammer me. And I'd be like, well, I love it. And you're like, I don't care, it's toxic.
It's tough love. Body. Tough love for your friends, man. So that's what it is. So that leads me to ask you, when and why did you start to gravitate away from being a regular Pepsi drinker? What hit you to take this long-lasting habit from your youth that you've carried all the way up until you're near 40-year-old man here? Where did you nix it? Where did you start saying, I got to reduce this and cut this out?
Yeah, so I'm a sugar guy, right? Whether it's candy or it's marshmallows or it's the sodas. And I was like, okay, I'm consuming way too much. And maybe it's because I'm getting older and you start to realize that you're over consuming, whether it be, whatever. And it got to the point to where I was like, okay, so I'll eat an oatmeal pie and then I'll have a soda and then maybe I'll eat, and I was like, I got to cut, something's got to go. And I figured, if I'm going to cut something out, I'm going to cut out the Pepsis, because I would consume and drink and crack open another one. So, that was it. It was a moment where it was an epiphany. when I said that I need to cut out this sugar intake. I'm intaking way too much. And it wasn't even a thing where I went to the doctor, because I go to the doctor every year and I do a checkup and I get my blood drawn and he runs the tests and he comes back and he says, okay, you need to, he never once has he ever said to me, you consume too much sugar, which is mind blowing to my wife, because my wife will tell you I just eat it by the spoonful. Well. So my big things were at the doctor was, oh, you got to cut back on the red meat, eat more fish, that sort of thing. But I knew that there would come a time where I would go to the doctor and he would do the test, the checkup, and he'd come back to me and he goes, yeah, you got to dial it back. So I'm trying to be preventive. I'm trying to prevent a future problem because I know it's coming. Because like you said, I'm almost 40. So I was like, you know what? I got to cut the sodas out. And that was, boom, that drew the line. I was, my wife hasn't been able to cut them out, but now she buys those little itty bitty cans to try to like dial it back.
Yes. Yeah, the 8-ounces.
Yeah, so she still drinks those, diet, and I've allowed regular Coke to be in the house, even though I know I shouldn't. So she still consumes those little midget cans. Can I say midget here?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Okay.
We're good.
All right, yeah. So she still consumes those, but other than that, the regular size soda, no Pepsis. I haven't bought. I used to buy them by the 36 pack at Costco, and and that was it. It was just a moment.
That's phenomenal. And that's sometimes all you need is just that little bit of a hey, just that kick in the ass or that just epiphany moment that you've hit. And that's not all bad what your wife's doing, that she's buying maybe the 8-ounce cans instead of the 12. That is progress. You just have to make sure that you're, instead of having 3 12-ounce cans, you're not having 5 of the 8 ounces, thinking that you're doing something and you're actually end up consuming more of it. So that is something that is definitely the first thing you want to nix. And I do say this to a lot of, I have a lot of patience in starting slow with clients. I think that's always the best route. But what I will always start with the liquid calories first, because they are the most empty calories you could have. Now, imagine taking those Pepsis and having an alcohol problem on top of that. Not only are you just slugging down the Pepsis, but now you're putting in a toxin inside with that. That is one of the worst things you can drink, a rum and Coke or a rum and Pepsi or a Monster and vodka. Those are a Red Bull and vodka, whatever you want. Those are some of the worst things I think the human body can actually put in their system. It's everything toxic to the human body when you combine those two things. So good for you for not putting alcohol in it, because that's something very common that people are doing, that they just laugh off and don't realize what's happening. But you put that with the sugar, and then you start getting a buzz and you are drinking multiple of these things. I did it myself when I was young. I would go to an open bar at a wedding or an event, and I could tell you, I think I had at least 7 or 8 Jack and Cokes while I was there. It was disgusting. And you don't realize what that's doing to you. So that's the first place where you want to start looking to, where if you want to lose fat, be healthier, you got to cut the liquid calories out or minimize them, save them for times when you really enjoy them, like when you're out at a restaurant. I think that's a good balance, because it eliminates the deprivation. If you are actually a real fan of this drink and you do truly get enjoyment out of it, instead of completely nixing it to 0%, now you're at maybe 5% of the time you're drinking a Pepsi. And you know what? You might appreciate it a little bit more when you get to that restaurant and that giant cold cup comes to the table filled with ice and it's just bubbling up. And you're probably a little more excited about it because you didn't have 3 cans sitting at home. So that's a great way to go about it.
Less is definitely more.
Yeah, absolutely. In that case. And now I know you and I, because I drink this bubble water, this seltzer water, bubbly AHA. Those I know you won't drink AHA because it's a Coke product, but lime bubbly. So what did you do? How was your transition from, because a lot of people, when they come off of something that's so heavy on the taste buds, it's saturated with that sweet in their mouth, it's very hard to switch from that to a AHA or to a bubbly, because the taste buds are so used to the strong sugar content that tastes like absolute shit. I'm in a position right now, because I don't drink any Coke or pop at all, any of that stuff, because I just flat out don't really enjoy it. And I know how terrible it really is for me. So a lime bubbly tastes tremendous to me. It actually could be a Sprite if I just closed my eyes, because I've trained my taste buds to enjoy it. How was that transition for you, Dick?
Yeah. So ironically enough, I chose bubbly, not realizing that it was made by Pepsi. That was just
Just
I
dumb
think that
luck
came
by
from
you.
Yeah, I think that came from you to try the bubbly.
It might have been.
Or I saw like a Michael Bublé commercial and I was just hooked. But no, so lime and cherry are my two favorite bubbly flavors. And when I was getting off of the Pepsi, I followed your advice into the bubbly, and it's a carbonated beverage. So I've
Right.
kind of tricked myself into this is it literally is replaced. Like I will literally have one at dinner as if it was a Pepsi.
Exactly. And all you really did was sacrifice taste. You kept your texture, which
Yeah.
is sometimes a big part of it, because what you really crave with those sodas that are high in sugar and 140 calories a can, what you really want is that temperature, which you kept the same, which is cold, and the texture, which is that bubbly, crisp feeling that just hits that back of your tongue the right way, especially that first sip after having some food. It's actually very enjoyable. My wife likes to shit on me because I refuse to drink these things unless they are ice cold right out of the fridge. She'll let her sit there on the counter and drink it half-assed warm room temperature. I'm like, how do you do that? She's like, I just don't care. I'm like, okay, you do you. But she yells at me. She's like, I keep my bubbly in the fridge until it is time to eat. Then I pull it out. That's how I do it.
I go a little even overboard. I take my bubbly or my Spindrift. I have now found Spindrift. We'll talk about Spindrift in a minute. But
yeah,
either way, I take the can out of my mini fridge and I actually put it in the freezer for a few minutes while I'm eating. And then by the time that I'm done eating, I take it out of the freezer. And you want to talk about cold and crisp. Okay. Yeah. It is. So I'm like you, but I go a step further because I stick mine in the freezer to get optimum cold.
See, I like that idea, but I do have I draw the line because I don't want any ice chunks in it.
True. You have to time it perfectly.
Yeah, it's got to be a perfect
time it perfectly.
Right.
Yes.
Temperature matters. Absolutely. It does.
No, yes. Because if you do go too long, the top part will be like a thin layer of ice.
So, right, exactly. And you want to just get that exactly right. See, this is what we're getting at. You want to find something that's going to work for you health-wise, make you feel good, not destroy your insides, but not give up too much to where you're just, drinking plain ass water if that's something you don't like to do all the time. So I wanted to give you guys and Dick a little rundown of I put this together of what I believe like just a standard human being who hasn't really paid much attention to their diet, to calories, to nutrition labels, just how easy it could be to go out of your calorie deficit and overeat just through drinking drinks throughout the day. Now, if you take the average female, okay, I do females because I like they're my main client. So I'm going to use a female as the subject here. Their calorie deficit on average is about 1,600 calories if they're an active female, okay? 1,600 calories in a day for adequate fat loss with macros correctly proportioned out. So let's say this person's deficit is there. And they go and they start their day over at Starbucks and get a large size mocha frappuccino. I don't know the terminology, venti, grande, bougie, mouge. I don't know what the hell. I don't know how to order at Starbucks anymore, or I never have because I just don't understand. But that's 520 calories. Okay, 520. There are drinks, many of them on the menu that range from 3 to 4 to 500, possibly even more. And if you start putting your own sugar in and adding to it and more cream, it just goes sky high. So let's say they start their day out with that. That's 520. Then they go to work. It's lunch break. They run through McDonald's and they get whatever they get with a large Coke. 290 calories there. Okay. They go about their day. They go home. They want to have a glass of wine with dinner, maybe 2. I say they're going to have 2 glasses because most people will pour a glass of wine so heavily that it actually comes out to what the measurement is, that is 2 glasses. So that's 250 calories. That totals 1,060 calories. And now their calorie deficit, which would result in consistent fat loss, is 1,600. That leaves them with 540 calories left to eat food. To hit that. And no matter what they do at this point, they're going to be protein deficient because there's almost no way, unless they just eat plain fish, white fish, just plain boiled with nothing on it, There's no other way they're going to hit their macros and stay within their deficit, and they're going to gain fat almost for sure. Does that make sense to you, Dick, how I laid that out?
As somebody who has never counted a calorie in their life, that made sense.
Okay, good. Because I wanted to make sure, because I get so enamored in this and I get so involved and so deep into it that sometimes I speak in a way where I feel like everybody should just kind of understand where it is. But I wanted to make sure that that came and resonated with you and our listeners. So just showing you how easy it is to go ahead and overconsume just through liquids. Now, that doesn't include the Danish that they had at the office, the burger and fries they had, and whatever they had for dinner. And this is easily how you can consume 3,000 calories in a day. And if you're idle and you're not moving around, that even just flaps on top of it. And if you're not sleeping well, it just all goes to shit. So it's really important to go ahead and understand that the amount of calories you're drinking is detrimental to your goal. And I would drink as little as possible of calories. Everything you should drink should be 0 calorie as often as possible. That it sounds boring, but it can be done, and it should. So we're going to close this one up. This was a shorter episode. We just wanted to kind of put out there, I wanted to talk to a person, like I said here, he's never counted a calorie before, but he did make changes in his life. And it's a positive one to cut this bad habit out. So if you're out there, New Year's is coming up. Resolution time, new year, new me. We talked about it in one of the last recent episodes. What a great thing that is to nix this soda, this bubbly sugar water. And don't do it on January 1st and say none, I'm done. Those are too abrupt. Lower it for the first week of January. Well, that's okay. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it works.
Yeah, I have to do it like that because I just can't. It's not in my house. I don't buy it. It's just gone. We walk by it in Costco, and I make a joke like, "Remember when we used to buy that? 30 cans in a case? Forget about it."
We've done the same thing, and that's a great position to be in. You can see yourself out on the other side. So I like that. All right. So that'll do it for this episode. Before we do go, I would like Dick Ford. You are a tenured podcaster and host. Why don't you plug your shows for us really quick? What are you up to?
And I should also tell everyone, don't forget to get the COVID vaccine and get boosted.
Fuck off my show.
I wanted to get that in.
Go put all 3 of your masks on and go sit alone in
don't forget to get your 3rd and 4th boosters right now at your local Rite Aid.
And you know what? Maybe if you go to Walgreens, they'll throw in a free Coke for you if you get your vax boosted, and
man,
send you on your way with a donut and a Pepsi.
You did such a great intro that I actually, when earlier my joke was going to be in the beginning to go, all right, so we're talking about the boosters and the COVID vaccine, right? Like that was going to be my big joke because I know you hit it. But you did such a great intro. I was like, all right, I'll have to slide it in at the end.
That's okay. So, we're always gonna make good jokes about that. But why don't you plug what you're up to?
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier women listen to this podcast, or probably most of your clients rather are women. So probably most of the people that listen to this podcast are probably women as well, which chances are they like true crime podcasts. And I host one. It's called Ford in Vegas, a true crime podcast. You could find it on Spotify and Apple and YouTube. The website for all those links is fordandvegas.com. We do it every other week. Talk about all like this, the new stuff and some old stuff and some unsolveds and cold cases and all of that. A classic true crime podcast with 2 friends who hate each other. So that's that. And then I also do Mark's Side of the Ring, which obviously if you're a wrestling fan, which might be 2 of you listening to this thing, you could look us up on Mark's Side of the Ring is on Spotify and Apple and YouTube and all of that.
I have tuned into that podcast. There's a guy on there, Mike Madness. He's a
real treat.
He's great.
He is.
Thoroughly enjoy him.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, Mark's Side of the Ring, and check out the things Mike Madness has to say on that show. You will enjoy it. I promise.
He is like he's the Barry Horowitz of that podcast.
I'm sure like everyone got with that reference right there. But anyways,
people might.
Look, that's Dick Ford. I will tell you right now, and you know the drill. If you need to get a hold of me, you can find me on social media at MFS Wellness. That's either Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. You can also drop me an old school email whenever you'd like, mike@mfswellness.com. I want to thank again my pal Dick Ford for coming on and sharing his Pepsi quitting story. And until we do another episode, we will see you then. Thank you.